Hello, feasters, and thank you for listening. This is a Sporting Feast, your one-stop shop for all things sports. But on this occasion, it's very special. We're talking football and football only. This is available through all podcasting platforms. And for the very first time, you get to see our gorgeous faces on YouTube. We hope you enjoy this. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Richard King. How are you, mate?
Hello, Scobes. Hello, Feasters. A very exciting evening for everyone involved. And I can't wait. This is going to be awesome. And thank you to our two special guests for joining us for this very special Champions League edition of the Sporting Feast. And as always, thank you very much to our episode sponsors, Wishbet, for supporting us through the episode and throughout the year.
Let's bring in those special guests. Firstly, in the light blue corner, weighing in at, no, I won't give away your weight there. But he's supporter of Man City, and they've been to this game before, and he's hoping they come with a different result this time. Ryan Kerr, how are you, mate?
Good, boys. Thanks for having me on. And I'd say hello to all the Man City fans out there, and commiserations to all the Manchester United fans out there after the weekend.
Yes, alluding to the FA Cup final. I'm sure you're happy about that. So you've ticked a couple of boxes, the Premier League title, the FA Cup title, and you're looking to do the three-peat. But the team trying to stop you is Inter, and representing Inter on this debate we're going to have is Dean Consiglio. He's been on the podcast before. He's a second-time visitor to the Sporting Feast, and hopefully he brings some second-time presents with him. How are you, mate?
I'm good, boys. How you going? Nice to be here.
Yeah, keep going. Oh, sorry. Scobes forgot the script already. We're going all right. Now, obviously, Dino, you've been on before. Italy defeated England. We must mention this in the Euros. I know you wanted that to be addressed from the top. Around Brisbane, from time to time, when I do run into people and they ask about the podcast and they are of Italian descent, they will mention the special episode which featured yourself. Your prediction of an extra time victory, whilst it wasn't specific, obviously the win in penalties, and England were defeated by Italy on that. But also it'll go down in the history books written for the ages that JC Lawyers were the first official sponsor of the greatest podcast in the world, The Sporting Feast. For all your conveyancing, property and family law needs, JC Lawyers.
Mate, we've had a long connection for many years now with The Sporting Feast, and it's a joy to be back here again. That podcast was a ripper. In life, there's a few certain things. You've got death, taxes, and England choking in tournaments. So it should have been a no-brainer for everyone, that result for that game. But obviously, I was the one to get the chocolate that day. So, yeah, it's good to be back.
There's another certainty in life, and the King is going to continue to buy multiple houses. So he's going to need your conveyancing needs there, Dino.
No worries, mate. I'm always here.
Let's get into the football, and I'll throw to you, Curry. I want to get your thoughts on how you've seen the Manchester City season so far. They've obviously ticked that FA Cup box. They've got the Champions League title under their belt. They've got a good depth to their squad. How have you seen this season?
Yeah, really, really competitive, mate. I think, early in the season, if everyone looked back, Arsenal got a really good head start at Christmas. They're ahead. Man City, I was always confident would chase Arsenal down. There's a few reasons to that. We hadn't played Arsenal. We had both games in hand. So arguably when they were ahead by almost 10 points, we still had some games in hand. We obviously had to play them twice. So I think at no point did I feel it was unachievable or we couldn't reach Arsenal. And Arsenal have a history of at some point letting a few games slip, and that was pretty evident when they dropped a few games. And Man City capitalised and beat them both, but in both legs, home and away. And I think when you look back and you look at what the Man City team has achieved, all the titles, 4 in the last 5 years, you just have to give credit to the boys to keep being persistent. And it's just the quality of what Pep drives through the squad and the expectations he sets, and also the senior leaders at the club. So from my perspective, when you look domestically, Man City have certainly, they're in this purple patch, and it's a patch that I don't think as a City fan I'll take for granted, in the sense of I don't think this is going to happen, again. And then to win, the FA Cup on the weekend, to really top off what has been already a great season. Although we didn't win it comfortably, it wasn't the most comfortable game to watch as a fan. Few tough calls from the ref and so forth, but credit to the boys again for just sticking at it. So it felt like that was a really good test for us to test ourselves and lead us into the Champions League, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. But my feeling ultimately is that game against Manchester United, and I know Dean and I spoke as well prior to this. Dean was hoping to see if there's some chinks in the armour or something that could be shown in that game, and I think City didn't even play their best, and we certainly got the job done. And I certainly felt that we were in control most of the game. So yeah, it's been a good year. I love seeing Liverpool miss out. They've been a big rival, a big competitor for the last few years. A lot of Scousers, been very, very, upbeat for the last few years about Jurgen Klopp, and just shows the quality and of what Pep can drive, and why he's the world's best manager, if not the best manager ever in the history.
Well said, mate. Yeah, you've always been positive about Pep and City, and obviously Gundogan was a freak on in that final. Just the quality caliber player that he is. He is the human barometer, and his best is he's just so solid, mate. He just doesn't make mistakes, and you saw what he did on the weekend.
I think he and Pep may have had some tactical talks. They're neighbours. I don't know if you guys know that. They live next door to each other. So I hope Gundo stays on for longer at City. I know he's getting old, but he's our captain at the moment, and he drives a strong standard. And Pep, he was actually Pep's first signing when he arrived at City as well. So it just shows how long they've stuck together, and what the senior leaders can do with those younger boys in the squad. So yeah, Gundo is probably one of those players that doesn't get the accolades that De Bruyne or Haaland or some of these others, Aguero in the past have received, but he's certainly been, a key spine of our team.
Good to know where the players live. Keep your stalking at a safe distance there, right?
Look, I'm just a big fan, mate.
Yeah, I just want to address, you talked about Scousers there taking cheap shots at Man City. Do you think it's because they think you've underachieved by not winning the Champions League, or do you think it's just inbuilt in the rivalry to take pot shots at other teams?
I think there's a big rivalry historically between Liverpool and Man City. And in all honesty, I think Liverpool's probably had a fair rub of the green over us. If you look at the Champions League, we've played them. You look at the Premier League. In saying that, domestically, I think Liverpool would probably have a couple more titles if it wasn't for Man City as well. So I think it's been just like as a neutral, talking to neutrals in some areas around football, they talk about how it's just a pleasure to watch when you got two teams, chasing 90 to 100 points, and they're not dropping games. It's an absolute pleasure just to see the quality, and what Jurgen has done in that squad is just outstanding. And I'm sure they've had a blip, but I have no doubt in my mind I'll see Scousers back challenging for the titles in the years to come. My view on Pep and the City not winning the Champions League, if you look historically, if we take out Real Madrid because they're just the Champions League juggernauts. If you look at the Champions League, you don't see Sir Alex Ferguson. He's a great example. Everyone talks about him being one of the greatest managers ever to live. He's only got a couple of Champions League titles to his name. Pep's obviously got a couple with Barcelona. The competition itself isn't the easiest to win. And if you look at historically, again, parking Real Madrid, it's got an array of winners. And sure, the expectations are most definitely on us to win this competition. And I think, I don't want to shy away from that fact. That is a goal of the owners. That is a goal of the club. And I think we need to embrace that goal. And as a fan, like I said, it's just a pleasure to be here, year after year, making round of 16 quarterfinals, semifinals. It just shows the quality. And I just think we need to step up in some of these big moments.
Now on to you, Dean. Ryan spoke about the Premier League historically, where two clubs are striving for, 95, 100 plus points. The Serie A was a little different this year, where one team dominated from start to finish. And that was all she wrote, with Napoli dominating pretty much every team. And they were out in front by a country mile, and they locked up that trophy very early on. Inter Milan have grown into the season, and obviously their success in the Champions League, getting through a challenging group stage to advance. How have you seen the season as an Inter Milan fan?
Oh, mate, it's one of those seasons where it's completely contrasting. The beginning of the season was really poor. We went into the season looking like our coach wanted to play a lot more expansive football. He's a bit of a pep fan, our coach, which, I'm not my traditional style. The results just weren't there to begin with. We had a lot of injury issues. Lukaku was essentially a non-factor for the first 6 months of the season. We put a lot of reliance on him coming back into the squad this year, and he just did seriously bugger all nothing for 6 months. He had a bit of a smell that he was sort of preserving himself for the World Cup. He didn't want to push himself too hard. He had a few injuries which he just wanted to nurse going into the World Cup in December. So he was out of the picture. Once that sort of World Cup break was over and Big Rom came back, our coach sort of changed his approach. Inzaghi went to a more of a deep-lying, counter-attacking style, which we're built for. It's in our history. It's what we are. And Lukaku fed off it. And we've had now probably 3 or 4 months of pretty good football under our belt. And, we're storming home at the moment. And we've managed to wrap up third spot in the league. And we've snatched the domestic cup, the FA Cup equivalent in Italy, the Coppa Italia, and plough through the competition in the UCL knockout. So, terrible start of the season, but the boys and the coach have really turned it around.
And just on that note, it'd be obviously pretty special if Inter Milan could secure a Champions League victory here, given the last manager who won the Champions League for Inter Milan was a gentleman by Jay Mourinho. Yeah,
my friend Ryan was rattling off some names earlier of coaches with UCL pedigree, but he left one off, I guess, by accident. Jose is a stalwart in this competition. He's won it with underdog teams, really, with Porto and Inter. He's done it the hard way, so he's up there as well. Yeah, he's the last coach to do it for us. He's a legend in our eyes. And look, the view from England might be a little different, but this competition is the crown jewel in club football. Like, don't get it wrong. It outweighs every league, every cup you could essentially imagine. Winning this competition is it for clubs. It does not get any better than this.
And just before we hand back over to Ryan, just talking about that group stage, it wasn't easy for Inter starting out. You've got Bayern Munich and you've got Barcelona, and you've just got to obviously negotiate that, but that wasn't easy. And they were able to fight through that to qualify past the group stage. And we will get into this a little bit later, but your run through the draw of the Champions League was far easier than what City had to negotiate.
Yeah, it was. This competition, you're going to have ebbs and flows with your luck. All our bad luck came at the start of the draw. We actually had a good seed going into the draw. I think we finished second in Italy last year, so we should have been up there and with an easier group, and we just got us into that draw and ended up with Bayern Munich and Barcelona and Victoria Pilsenia. It was a really tough group. Bayern comfortably beat us in home and away games. But we sort of knew that was coming. Barcelona was always our target. We had to knock them off to get second spot, basically. So we navigated those games really well. We won at home and then went away to Barca and drew 3-3. So those 4 points were enough to get us over the line. And we did the job, obviously, against Victoria Pilsen as well. So we managed to get second in the group. And then from there, a little bit of luck went our way. The draw broke very kindly. When I saw the draw for the quarters onwards, I said nothing short of a final appearance would sort of be acceptable in my eyes, seeing the calibre of opposition. So we've done the job. Hard part was at the beginning, and we've done the job since from then on. So that's all you can do.
Sounding like a lot like a coach there, mate. Ebbs and flows, and 1 foot in front of the other. You can only beat the team that's in front of you. Maybe you've got a second calling if JC Lawyers gives you the sack.
No.
Let's turn back to you, Ryan, and talking about Pep specifically in reference to this final. He's been known to be a little loose, I guess, with some of the things he does in finals. Thinking back to, I think it was last year, he made a couple of selections which you wouldn't normally expect, and it didn't turn out overly well for you and Man City. Besides Haaland, who's expected obviously to be a feature, and De Bruyne as well, who else are you expecting to be pivotal in Manchester's success?
Mate, speaking to Pep's tinkering, yeah, I think he's got a history of it for sure. But I think this year, and looking at the FA Cup and some of these clutch games against Arsenal, I think if you actually look at the squad, I think it's pretty settled. And I think the lineup that you saw against in the FA Cup against Man U, it will probably be exactly the same. Maybe give or take, Mahrez may come in, but I can't see it changing at all in regards to this. Key players for me, I think, is Jack Grealish. Huge expectations on him last year when he came in, $100 million price tag. City paid the release clause. The credit to City is they know what they wanted. They went and got him, and he's taken a bit of time to adjust. Even in watching some of Jack's interviews over the past, he's really said it's taken him some time to kind of find his own feet in the squad. And particularly the last 6 months, Jack has just found a whole new level. And I think Jack on the left wing is going to create significant problems. Just his ability to I don't know if it's the dark arts, but he certainly has the ability. It's very rare for him to lose the ball. He'll be able to throw across. His connection with Haaland's only getting stronger. But I think holistically, the thing I find about City, what's our strength, is that there's no one, single outsource that you have to rely on. Like if you look at a Tottenham with Harry Kane, there's no one single point. So if you're an Inter, I think that would frighten me in the sense of, if you go Mark Haaland, you're now leaving De Bruyne open. If you mark Haaland and De Bruyne, you're now leaving Jack open, or Bernardo Silva or Gundogan. So I think our strength is our squad and the depth and the way that Pep plays. But particularly if you are looking for a game breaker outside of obviously De Bruyne and Haaland, in my mind, it has to be Jack.
On that note, Perry, Grealish and Haaland were probably notable adds to this Man City squad over the last, 18 months. Let's call it that. What's different in terms of City? What's changed? Obviously, Haaland's a key nine and a bigger body than what you stereotypically see from a Pep Guardiola side. In your opinion, what do you think's changed that's led to the success? We know the quality of both players, but why do things keep clicking, and why are things clicking probably better than what they have previously?
I think it's a really simple thing for me, is that City have that released long now, and Haaland can bring it to ground and Jack can hold it up. And that ability to hold the ball in your opposition half is, underrated quite frequently, I think. And if you look at Harry Kane, he's been an expert at this over the years, for years and years at Tottenham. Lloris would bomb the ball long, Harry Kane would draw the foul, and you've instantly got the ball now and halfway. And I think that extra dimension is new for Pep, and it's new for City, and since Pep's been around for sure, having smaller forwards in Aguero and Jesus and alike, and I think having that extra dimension. And if you compare, say, the previous wingers and left wingers, we've had Leroy Sané, we've had Bernardo there, Phil Foden there. If you look at what Jack Grealish does, his ability to control the ball, run in to the middle of the field and release that ball, I think that's what the dimension is that Jack adds. And usually as a coach, I hear a lot of coaches say you take too many touches, and whereas I think with Jack, he actually takes more, and I'd like to see him on the ball more and play forward more. So I think just because of Jack's quality, his vision, his ability to hold the ball up is just phenomenal. And if anyone watched the FA Cup game with Manchester United, we bombed that ball long a lot to Haaland. One thing I'd love to see more from Haaland is just his ball control. If he can get that a little bit cleaner and crisper, I think that's even more dangerous. I actually think there's even more room to improve in Haaland in those combinations of players running through.
And sorry, just going back to you mentioned that if there were any changes, you'd look at Mahrez. I just had a look, probably with the exception of the FA Cup. De Bruyne came off at 74. I also had a look at the first leg of the Real game. That was probably the one, in terms of the FA Cup, the Real game, probably the two games closest to this Champions League where you get an idea of that squad selection and that starting lineup and also subs. From memory, you didn't sub anyone out that 90. They played an all-out 90. So that's probably the one difference with City this year I've noticed, where there's a lot more trust in the starting 11 than probably in previous occasions. And you've got Foden, you've got Mahrez. It'd be interesting to see how they use them the longer this game goes on.
I think in this Champions League you will see substitutions. I think someone like Alvarez and Foden who can really inject a lot of speed to press that ball untied into legs. Alvarez and Phil came on in the second game against Real Madrid, and just the tired legs of Real Madrid, that speed and that precision, just saw a late goal come in, and so. I think the substitutions and the bench and the dimensions, like we're saying, is going to be huge for Pep. So he can change up, his formations very quickly. So even if City were to go down a goal, I wouldn't be frightened. And it's quite scary to say that, in all honesty, and it might sound a bit cocky, but I actually think the dimensions that City has is very valuable, and the park the bus style that I think typically Italian teams created. I think when we look back, a lot of teams in Italy, we look at a lot of teams in England. I think a lot of teams try and park the bus against City. So I'm not frightened at all about a park the bus. I'm not frightened at all, because every week City has to break down teams, and that's what our specialty is.
Yes, well said. I can picture a big bus in Istanbul this Sunday of a Nero-Azzurri colour. Dean Consiglio, we've heard just from Ryan there the multiple threats and avenues to goal that Man City possess. They were outstanding against Real Madrid. They were outstanding against Bayern Munich. They've had probably the most challenging draw to get to this stage. And a lot of people would argue that, the quarters and the semi are probably harder than the final. My question to you is, how do you plan to stop this juggernaut?
God, look, being honest, on paper, if we're going to do a preview, there's nothing that would suggest anything other than a comfortable win for City. There's no argument about it, really. Man for man across the pitch, we're second best in every spot. We don't have the resources to match City. Our team is built with about 4 or 5 free transfers and a lot of team spirit. So if you're looking at it on paper, it's not worth really going into. However, it's a 90-minute game. We've seen in the past, only 2 years ago with Chelsea, that it doesn't take much. One counter-attack goal, Havertz, I think, one-on-one with the keeper, slots at home, and that's it. City get a little bit nervous in that game. If they do it again, there's a door into the game there. As far as containing their threats, look, we all know what Haaland is. We all know what De Bruyne is. They're probably two of the best players in the world. Not much more can really be said about that. We've got a gritty old Italian defender in Francesco Acerbi. He's gotten better with age, like a fine bottle of Italian Barolo, if you will. And he's playing some of the best football of his life at the moment. He's our central defender in the back three. His job's going to be to sort of stick to Haaland like crew from start to finish. Look, there are other players we need to watch. It's not going to be simple. We're going to need a little bit of luck going our way and a bit of Italian grit. And I don't mind that position, to be honest, because the Inter sides of the past don't win when we are coming into a game as a heavy favourites. We love the underdog challenge.
Well, speaking of, Dino, just going through the stats from the Champions League run. So 12 matches, 19 goals in those 12 matches, 24 yellow cards in the 12 matches, and 150 fouls committed. So I just thought about those dark arts, if you will, if I've got those stats right. I found that to be very interesting. Ryan mentioned earlier, he was talking about Haaland, his ability to hold up the ball, wishes he could probably be a little bit tighter and cleaner in that space. One guy that, watching back through some highlights, I've been quite impressed with post-World Cup. He didn't really do a lot at the World Cup, but big Rom Lukaku for Inter, his last few fixtures, just clean, his ability to distribute and create and be able to hold up a ball, because obviously I think everyone knows how this game's going to run. And Ryan alluded to it, the fresh legs after 60, 70 minutes to frustrate and you're playing against tied into players will be chasing shadows, because we know City's going to have the majority of possession. And so it's going to be important that when Inter have the ball, they keep the ball. And Lukaku is going to be a key part of that if he does start. And if it's not him, it's Dzeko. But is Lukaku your way to goal? Is he the one that he needs to win his battle against probably Diaz or Stones?
Yeah, mate. There's two different Lukakus this season, pre-World Cup, post-World Cup. Pre-World Cup, he looked like he was playing in a set of Timberland boots, running around that field like it was bad. He's back to his scintillating best. The fitness is there, the form's there. His hold-up play on the ball is incredible. And his link-up play with Lautaro is also very good. Big question mark, though, about does he start or not. Our coach has a love affair with Edin Dzeko and has done so since he arrived at Inter last year. Dzeko, I love. I've got a lot of time for that guy. He scored some big goals, some important goals. He's a great box man, great on set pieces, good in the air. But I think this game's got Lukaku written all over it. I think I'm pretty confident saying he's going to start. He will be the man on the counter-attack. He's a counter-attack player. Since he arrived at Inter those years ago with Conte, he built a system for him basically, which is get the ball to him in space and let him use his size, strength and speed to sort of isolate his man. And I want to see a bit of that on the weekend if we're to have a chance.
Now, Dino, talking about lineups, your midfield, probably an area of depth you've got a few guys who can move through there. Brozovic had a vicious strike against Torino in that 1-0 victory on the weekend, goal from outside the box. How do you picture that midfield lining up come Sunday morning? Yeah,
that's another really tough one because the coach has gone with the three in the midfield. So we always set up with a 3-5-2, two wing backs and three central midfielders. Barella and Çalhanoğlu are two locks. They're the first names on the starting sheet every week. The third spot is the one that's in contention. Mkhitaryan pretty much had it nailed down for most of the season, and he's been playing some really good football. He got injured a couple of weeks ago, and he's pretty much hasn't played since. The story is he is going to be fit for Sunday, but I'm not a fan of throwing these guys in who haven't played for 2 or 3 weeks. I just think they're off the pace a bit. They're going to be lacking fitness. I think Brozovic is going to get the start. So you're going to see Brozovic, Çalhanoğlu and Barella in that 3. That's my suspicion anyway.
Thank you, sir. Now, sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to chime in before when Dean almost resigned himself to the fact that Man City should be winning this. But crazy things happen in sports. So you got to take that into account when you're previewing or predicting. Not to mention, Man City dropped 5 games this year in the EPL. And I also just had a quick look at other games they dropped. They dropped a game to Southampton at one point. Now, Southampton if I recall, they just got relegated. And so they've dropped to a championship team. So that's got to give you some hope, surely.
Mate, look, it can happen. There's no doubt about it. If you look, I'm an Italian football fan, have been a child through the league, the national team. The Italian teams don't win when we're favourites. We love these challenges. We love a gritty game. Over 90 minutes, we can give it pretty hard. And I think we can do it on Sunday, absolutely. You just got to have a bit of faith.
Ryan, you got a rebuttal there?
I just want to call out, I think Kingy gave a fantastic stat about the dark arts with all those yellow cards, right? And I think that the way that Inter do win, to be honest, is through those dark arts. If I'm the dark arts, I kill time. I bring players down. I'm physical. I don't want to say dirty, but I think that's the way Inter got to win. That is when you're an underdog. That is how you got to win. You got to, like Dino said, you got to be gritty. like you said, Scopes, we have lost games this year. I think set pieces could be Inter's way in as well for us if they can get a couple of good set pieces, and who knows what happens when the ball hits the ground. So, but I think ultimately Inter, historically, from what I was reading, is very renowned this year for their counterattacks, and I think the way that Pep plays. That could play into Inter's hand straight away with counterattacks. If you look at Liverpool historically, that's the way a lot of the time they've beaten us is through counterattacks. We might sit on 70, 80% possession, and then Liverpool beats us because they've caught us with a chance. And I'd like to hope that this new structure that Pep's playing with Stones in the midfield, so having Stones and Roger in the midfield adds that additional layer to stop that, which I think that's a big change that Pep has made in previous years. Adding another centre mid has really kind of changed the way a little bit, adds another outlet from playing out from the back. But look, I'm certainly not going to say this is David and Goliath, but I certainly am not going to shy away from the fact that this is what City have invested for. This is what City's aiming for. Not for 1 second, I don't think any City fan's going to sit here and say we don't deserve to be favourites. Absolutely, we deserve to be favourites. And I think as a fan and I hope the players embrace that. And I have to say that a lot of these players have had the experience of being in the final. They've been in many finals, and it comes down to, I think it'll come down to moments. It'll come down to who can take the best, chance at the time. And that's when you look up to big names like Haaland and De Bruyne, and in Dino's case, he's got Lukaku and our, as a City fan, a fan favourite of ours, and Dzeko. And, I just think at this point it's going to come down to these moments, and I think City will just have more of those moments.
There's a few points I just wanted to make. You finished, Ryan. Some few points I wanted to make and jump in there. Look, we all know City's going to have the ball. There's no doubt about that. It's just where are they going to have that ball? If we're pinned back and there's a barrage and an onslaught, we're in trouble. We're not going to be able to do that for 90 minutes. I think that's pretty obvious. Inter are pretty comfortable not having the ball. We've done a lot of it this season. We were right with it. If we can keep City on the ball outside the box, I think that's a position that we're comfortable with. The other point I wanted to make was, look, we're not going to get a lot of chances. So for us, Lukaku and Lautaro are going to be starting guys. There's no ifs or buts. If they get half a sniff, they have to take it. There's no other way around it. If they're having an off day and they're thinking they're going to need 3 or 4 chances to score, it's not going to happen. They will need to take their chances. Lautaro is pretty clutch. I'd back him. And Lukaku, look, we all know him. He's got a few shanks in that bag of his. But hopefully he'll leave them at home on the day. So there were 2 of the points I sort of really wanted to make there about that game and the way we're going to sort of cause any trouble, if we will.
You talk about the dark arts and key moments there. I'm a football novice, so fill me in. Because this is such a big game and key moments are important, is as the referee reffing the game somewhat differently because it's such a big game?
This is look, when it comes to European football, it's a real sticky point. And I was talking to Ryan about this probably early in the week in the Europa League game. I don't know if you would have seen that. The fans might have seen it. There was a handball incident, and we were in a group chat. There's a few Italians and a few English fans, and you could always split us straight down the middle. The Italians were dead set saying, well, that's a clear handball. It's given every week. And the English fans were sort of saying, well, it's not. In England, that's very rarely a handball. So the way the game is reffed around the world does differ from league to league. And when you get to Europe, the referees come from different leagues. So you could have Italian players. When we played against Barcelona or Bayern, for example, we had an English ref, and we're just not used to the way they call the games, and vice versa as well. If the English teams come up with an Italian ref, there's going to be calls that they're not used to. I think from what I've read, we've got a Polish referee. I don't know a whole lot about him. I don't know how he's going to ref the game, so I probably need to dive into that a little bit more. But I don't think the Italians or the English would sort of be used to it. It's not something they're going to be used to facing sort of week in, week out, and that can always have a really big influence in the game, especially around those really grey areas like handballs. Like that's reffed differently in every country, basically.
The ref is, I believe, the same ref who reffed the Real Madrid Man City game. So I think we have a bit of experience. But ultimately, I think Dino's right. The way that handballs are called outside of England is very different. And will be interesting to see. But I think we've got a whole Polish assistants, referees, everything. So VAR is all Polish refs. So I think it's pretty neutral ground, and I don't think there's a lot to call out in the ref space. I think it'll just come down to, again, moments on the day, and do they slow it down to the nth degree and potentially overread it, or do they let the game play? And I think, Scopes, to your original question is, do the refs get involved? I think you'll find that there'll be some calls, and it'll be especially early in the game, it'll be a lot looser.
Yeah,
similar to like State of Origin in Queensland and New South Wales and rugby league. Yeah.
I know there's always a narrative that the media likes when it comes to Italian football and Italian team. We're not probably as dark artsy as you would think or expect. Under Jose Mourinho, we were a different kettle of fish. As I said, this coach here, he fancies himself as a progressive and a attacking football connoisseur. So he doesn't lean too heavily on that. Italian style naturally is pragmatic. So the English fans might look at that and think, oh, it's dark artsy, it's sort of ruining the pace of the game. But we do play pragmatic football in Italy, full stop. So you'll see a little bit of that on the weekend. And I think the only other point I wanted to make was, for us, that first 20, 30 minutes are going to be crucial. The longer we hold City out for, if we can, I think is going to really play into our hands, because I think it's going to cause City to sort of push a bit more, be a bit more proactive, a bit more aggressive. They're going to want that goal. They're not going to want the game to drag on. And I think then we're going to see some chances on the counter sort of open up for us. And I think that's going to be the game plan. Going down a goal early on is going to be pretty rough for us, I think. If we're going to avoid that, that's the road to a potential victory.
On to predictions, gentlemen, and final thoughts before we ask you a question about Ange Postecoglou to round out our special episode of the Sporting Feast. So starting with our wish bet odds, in case people like a flutter. As always, please remember to gamble responsibly, 18 years or older to participate. Man City very short at $1.40, the draw $4.50, and Inter Milan $7.25. You win some, you lose more. As I said, please remember to gamble responsibly. This is a tricky one. Ryan, obviously you guys are going in favourites, but from a prediction perspective, how do you see this one faring from a City viewpoint?
It's a good question. I think if you look back at the past couple of months, we've put multiple goals against Arsenal, Liverpool, Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich. So I back City's attack. I think if you were to look at the results, I think if it was an Inter win, it'd be a 1-0. And I think it'd be anything more than that. I don't think there's any way City lets this go. In all honesty, there is no way. They've learned from their previous defeats against Chelsea 2 years ago. They're a better team. They've got momentum, confidence. I expect it to be a tough game. I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park by any stretch. I know some people are saying 3-1, 4-1 type scorelines. I've seen those been predicted. I certainly don't think it'll be that. I think it'll be City winning a 1-0 or a 2-1 type scoreline. Man City are the top scorers in the Champions League this year, and I believe Inter is probably one of the best defence in the Champions League this year, if not the best defence in the Champions League this year. So you're basically going against the best attack versus the best defence. But I just back City to have that momentum and have the experience to get it done. And City's substitutions off the bench, I think, will be more impactful than Inter's.
Pep Guardiola obviously has plenty of managerial trophies. This is the one he's wanted at Man City for a while. Psychologically, do you think from a Man City perspective, it is a little bit challenging, knowing full well the narrative around this fixture is you've already won it and you're going in as a heavy favourite, but also the fact that if you do win it, it's expected, you're not going to get the probably praise and that you deserve with winning a treble?
Oh, certainly not. I think if you look at all the pundits across the world, I think they literally say that this is the one Pep wants to fill his cabinet. I don't think anyone will shy away from the fact that winning a treble the last person to do that was Sir Alex, and he's the only English team to do that. So I think for City to go and do that, I don't think this will be at all diminished. I think if anything, this will probably be an argument of, is this the greatest team ever to be in the Premier League? So, and I think Pep knows he's won every accolade possible. He's at Barcelona, at Bayern Munich, and then at Man City. And I think this is the one he needs to win. As a fan, does it change my opinion of Pep? No, it doesn't, because what he's done for English football and what he's done for the game. And if you go speak to Jurgen and any of the top managers in the world, even Dino's manager at Inter Milan, they all idolise and appreciate for what Pep has done for the game. So as a piece of respect for Pep, I don't think anything will change. But certainly, I know Pep would want this one, and I know this would mean a lot for him, and I know this would silence all the doubters, because there are thousands of them. And well, I'm looking at two right now. So I think for sure this one is what Pep wants to win. But to answer your question around expectations and pressure, I think we've had this pressure on us since we were purchased, and PSG, have a similar kind of setting as us, is that they want to win this as well. So I don't think expectation changes. I think the thing for the City players, and I said it before, is the experience, the maturity to know what to do in big moments. And I think Pep has probably learnt from his previous lessons of tinkering, and he'll keep it pretty straightforward. And on the day, as much as Pep can do, it'll come down to the moments and the finishing, and Pep can do as much tinkering and substitutions as he wants, but ultimately it's going to come down to the players on the field and in the moments. And I just hope that the boys can step up and finish their chances.
So what are you thinking, mate? What do you have a score line, or who's going to put it in the back of the net for City?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a first goal scorer, I think Kevin De Bruyne is an absolute certainty in my mind. I think Inter will put a lot of players on players like Haaland and Jack and the boys up front. But I think De Bruyne will find space. He moves. He roams around the whole field. He's not set in one position. And I was watching an interview with Henry and Pep, and Pep is very structured, they say, in their defensive half, but as soon as they move into the opposition half, for certain key players like De Bruyne, it's a free-for-all, and they can kind of have that freedom to move the ball and be where they need to be to put the game away. So I think absolutely Kevin, Gundo, he's just coming up and popping up in areas that are just every key big game. He's a big game player, and he's proven it time and time again. So if you want Gundo as value, last I saw he was sitting around 8s or 9s for a first goal scorer. But if you want a roughie, like anytime goal scorer or something like that, I think John Stones is a fantastic option for me. He's playing this role that is so versatile that could see him, pop up in the box or at a set piece, and he's got a big leap on him. And obviously Jack. I said Jack earlier, so I think Jack will probably win man of the match for me. He wants it bad. He's got a big ego on him. He's got beautiful calves. Like, that man will do what he needs to do to get it done. But yeah, for me, Kingy's scoreline 2-1. If you see a 3-1, it'll probably be just a late goal because we just put it away. But certainly a 2-1, I think, would be realistic. I don't think this will go into extra time. I think the last time this went into extra time was quite a while ago with Atletico Madrid, off the top of my head. So I don't think this will go extra time. If it goes extra time, once again, I think City's bench it'll play into City's favour with Alvarez and Foden and Mahrez.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to raise with you guys is I heard Dino say before, if we can keep City out, they might get a little bit loose, or being 0-0 at halftime helps. If this does get to penalties, which for a non-football fan is arguably the most exciting part of football, if I can have my dig. No, kidding. Seriously, if it goes to penalties, does it favour one side or over the other, Dino?
No, mate, if it goes to penalties, God, I'd have to back us. I think the pressure, if this City side can't wrap it up after 120 minutes, the pressure on them has got to be sky high. they've got to be thinking that it's going down again. And it's look, Italian teams inflicting pain on English teams is a story as long as history itself in football. So I'd happily take an extra time or a pen in this game.
Now, Dino, you have been very quiet and very patient. How do you see this one predictions-wise? If Inter are to win, because there's a part of you that the belief starts early in the week. We are recording this on Monday night. Yeah. Game's obviously a few days away. There's a part of you that, early out from a game, you'll start thinking, okay, yeah, we can win this. And then you start picturing, how's it going to happen? Who's it going to be? How do you see that? What's gonna happen in your eyes?
I'll give you the prediction from the heart, not the head, because any neutral looks at this game, it shouldn't really be close. From the heart, as I said to you earlier, I can see us holding City out for a while. I can see a counter-attack goal. If you want value, bets-wise, I think any of the Inter three strikers, Lautaro, Dzeko and Lukaku, are all paying over $4 for any time goal scorer. I think that's decent value because I think we've got a goal enough, and one of those three could easily nab it. I'm thinking it's going to finish 1-1. I'm thinking it's extra time, and I think we could do it in extra time, if not on the pens.
We've seen this story before, haven't we, Dino? You mentioned extra time on a.
Talk to me, mate. 06 World Cup, Euro finals. We've done this before. The Italian teams love it. It's what we're made for. It's our football history. And
obviously, the gaffer Inzaghi knows a fair bit about that too, right?
Mate, he's a storied character of Italian football. Him and his brother famously represented Milan and Lazio over the years. They're born and bred Italian football royalty. So, and we've got a really strong Italian core this year, actually. I didn't mention that earlier. Our team is pretty much 50% Italian, which is huge. In recent years, we've never had anything like that. So we've really embraced the whole Italian package. So I'll be happy to ride that all the way to the final.
50% Italian, 50% EPL reject, I think, from
pretty much. Yeah.
Count.
We love, mate. The Italians love an EPL cast off. I'll tell you what. And we take those rocks and shine them into diamonds.
What did you used to tell me? Football was born in the UK, but it went to university in Italy.
Oh yeah, it was, mate. Football was born in the UK, and it went to university in Italy. We polished it up.
Well, there you go. Now, before we get out of here, Ryan, I'll go to you first. There's rumours circulating. News has dropped of it. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou might be taking his talents to Tottenham. What's your take on this move, and more importantly for Australians? What impact would Ange Postecoglou coaching an English Premier League side have?
I think it's huge for Australia. I think it's huge for Ange. I think Ange is never shied away from a challenge. If you look back at Ange's managerial record, he's always done something, and he's done something really positive. Celtic is such a good example. When he went to Celtic, I remember seeing, there was this trending video of this radio or media personality over there who I don't know, saying, "Who the hell is this? Who is this Aussie coach? He's going to be a flop," and so forth. And talking about Tottenham, like since 2019, since their Champions League final, they've been through 7 managers. So, and Jose's one of them, Conte's another. So when you actually start looking at the quality and the caliber of manager that has gone through Tottenham, I think it's a tall ask. It's a big ask for Ange to take on this challenge. Further to that, you add into the equation that potentially Harry Kane's on his last year of his contract. So does he stick around? I'm going to say something quite controversial. I think actually, if Kane goes, that's actually a good outcome for Ange. I actually think it'll play to his strength. He plays a 4-3-3 attacking typically. When he was in Australia and Queensland, and he led the Brisbane Roar, he was called Rawsalona for the way he played. He went on a 36-game unbeaten run for the Roar. So when you actually start looking at his style, does it suit? I think it suits Sonny. In Tottenham, I think they've got some really quality players that I think Ange can bring in. Give Ange a budget. I'm interested to see. Although it's not a large budget, and Daniel Levy is a difficult operator. And I remember Sir Alex Ferguson saying, he's more painful than a hip replacement. So when you talk about Daniel Levy, he's a tough operator. But I think when you actually, give Ange potentially $50 to $100 million, and that's what I think Spurs will give him, I still think he'll be able to bolster that squad. And I think the expectations won't be to win anything, but I think it'll be about getting them back to that kind of top 4, top 6 spot and cement them in. I think it's a 2-year deal with a +1 extension they're talking about, optional. So when you actually look at it, what does Ange bring? And you compare it to, say, Conte's style and Jose's style, which was quite defensive. I think it'll be quite refreshing to see Ange, and I think Ange probably is closer to Pochettino, who did quite well there at Tottenham as well. So, and you look at the list of managers that Tottenham were talking about, Luis Enrique and a few others. I actually think Ange, from my history of knowing him, is going to be highly. I think it's a good outcome for Australia. I think it's a good outcome for Ange. I think it's a good outcome for Spurs. I believe Ange's manager also knows Daniel Levy very well, and he's been pushing this in Daniel Levy's ear quite a bit. So. I think this is going to be really fun to watch from an Australian football perspective. But you got to remember, Ange coached Australia for a bit, and he had some pretty harsh words towards the end of his tenure about Football Australia and so forth. So I think this is going to really send a message through Football Australia around grassroots and fixing the system. And I think it gives Ange even a bigger platform and voice to voice his concerns about Australian football. And to be honest, everything that I've heard Ange say about Australian football is 100% accurate. I think the funding in the game, I think the way the model, how it works, needs to change. And I think this just gives Ange an even bigger platform. So, all in all, I think it's a good outcome. But I think Ange has got he likes a challenge, but I think this is a whole new level of challenge. And he's up against. He's not going to Japan, and he's not with Yokohama. He's not in the A-League. He's not in Celtic, where it's typically between two or three teams. He's in the Premier League, and you're up against potentially with Newcastle now with a lot of money. He's up against some top clubs, and if he can come away with any top 4, top 6 result, I think he'll definitely be staying on for longer, and I could potentially see him as more of a long-term successor at Tottenham for sure.
Dino?
Yeah, mate. Look, Bri gave a really good coverage there of everything. There's not a whole lot I'd add. The only thing I'd say is a little bit of concern going straight to that Tottenham job. That's been a poison chalice for years. Levy's a terrible man to operate under at the best of times. I got concerns for him that he's going to be potentially just thrown to the wolves there. I would have liked to have seen him sort of take a lower key job in the jump to the Premier League first. He's sort of grounded out his whole career. I think the jump from Celtic to Spurs is a big one to make. That's my only reservation there. But look, the opportunities don't come along all the time, so I can't fault him for grabbing it with both hands and going for it. It's great to see, even from an immigrant perspective, to see the man sort of come to Australia, make his bones, and then make it in the big league over there. It's really good to see. Not just for Australian football, but also for immigrants, in Australia as well. So, big fan. Hope he does well. A little bit of trepidation, though.
Well, that's it. Tottenham are like a broken club right now, right? Like,
yeah, they
are. They've lost their sporting director. They've lost everyone. So, Ange has got a big uphill battle. But I think he's the right character to do that. Like, I think he's always come into teams that have been struggling, or he's come into diverse environments. The thing that does concern me is the language barrier between some players and Ange. I don't think he can speak any other languages. Maybe Greek, Greece, because he's from Greece. So I'm not sure, but that's the kind of big concern I have. But yeah, like Dino said, I'd be really worried about that Tottenham squad, the budget, Levy having all the power and control, and Ange not having that control on who to buy.
Well said, guys. And we're looking forward to a massive game this weekend. I'll just touch on one final point. I both gave you what some people might not know out there is I have this ability to curse a side. I can declare a side home, and that means they won't win. The silent auction has ended, and I can confirm that Man City will be winning this title 100% guaranteed. JC Lawyers, the transfer came in, guaranteed Man City win this.
I can see what a Scouser would do. All I can say all these hoodoos like the curse from Yaya Toure and all these others. There's one Norwegian who will bust that curse, and he'll get it done.
Look, Inter may be the underdogs on paper, of course, but look, as far as the juju stakes go, mate, Inter's a lock. You got to. There's no other way to say it. The juju is on our side, so I'll take that as my parting grab.
And if you try and sprout this thing about a Croatian player, right? That's just absolute garbage.
That's just one. Have you seen the egg videos going around? There's a bloke who's cracked eggs with team logos on them since the draw was made, like in the round of 16, and every single egg crack was right to the Inter and Man City final. And the Man City egg cracked on the final go, and the Inter one prevailed. So that's the kind of stuff we're relying on.
Basically, what you're saying, dude, is we should have just gone with the egg cracker as our preview.
Mate, hasn't missed one yet.
Lads, you guys have been unbelievable. Good luck to you, Ryan, with Man City. Good luck to you, Dean, with Inter. And thank you, Richard. And thank you, boys, for participating in this preview.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, lads.
Thanks, guys. 14 tap.
And thank you for listening, Feasters. You can hear all of our podcast episodes on any good podcasting platform, and also visit us at www.thesportingfeast.com and our email info@thesportingfeast.com.
It was a pleasure, Dean and Ryan. We thank you very much for joining us for our first official video episode. All the best to you boys on Sunday. Hopefully I'll be watching the game with you live. And thank you to everyone who listened or watched this video. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you do have any feedback for us, please touch base with us via our social media accounts, Instagram at The Sporting Feast, Facebook, The Sporting Feast, or via our email address, info@thesportingfeast.com. We hope you enjoy. Go into Milan. Ciao for now.
Stay hungry.
Well,